The newest installment in the DC Extended Universe, or the DC Universe, I don't really know what it's called, is hitting theaters this weekend, and it has The Flash and his first ever big screen movie of his own. And will this movie live up to the expectations that everybody has been giving this film? Let's get to the review. Welcome back, film fans. It is Brad from Let's Be Real Brad, and if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, leave a like as you always should, and ring that notification bell so you never get to miss a new video. This film is about Barry Allen, who uses his super speed to change the past, but his attempt to save his family creates a world without superheroes, forcing him to race for his life in order to save the future. So this is a film I was cautiously excited for because on one hand, I was really excited to see a Flash movie. Like, we've never gotten that before unless you count the animated DC Universe movies. But in terms of a big theatrical release, we haven't had one. And with having Batman and Supergirl in this movie, I was really excited to see it. But I was also excited because this movie was also going to explore the Flashpoint storyline that I was really excited to see done on the big screen. But on the other hand, we have DCU as a whole, where all the movies just don't feel connected and it's all over the place, and some movies are really good and some movies are just really mediocre and not important to this universe at all. With so many different leadership changes, with James Gunn, who directed the Guardians of the Galaxy movies for Marvel, and now coming to DC and directing The Suicide Squad, and now he's going to be directing the newest Superman film. I am really excited to see where they're going to go with this, but I was very cautious going in because of all these different changes, and with so many different announcements of all these different movies they're going to do, and with a lot of uncertainty for all these actors to show back up in new future installments, I felt as though this movie was going to reboot everything, and in some ways it does. So let's just dive right into the review itself. And I do have to say that I enjoyed this movie. Like, I can't lie to you and say that this movie had a ton of very entertaining moments. And sure, so much of it is shown in the trailer, but I think for what this is, I think this was a pretty solid movie considering that DC movies aren't particularly the best. One of the best aspects about this movie is Ezra Miller. Ezra Miller has been of big talks in the past year or two with all the allegations against them, and for all of the crazy stories that you have heard online or on Twitter or things that they have done. And I'm not here to talk about any of those things because it doesn't matter in the slightest in terms of the quality of the movie, but I have to say that they're really good in this movie, and I can understand why Warner Bros. Discovery wants to stick with Ezra Miller, because I feel as though that they put so much effort into this role, and they are the best version of the Flash we have seen, where they were in a couple of other DC movies like Batman v Superman for a quick second and Justice League, and they really weren't all that great, and that was probably due to the writing and the directing. But Ezra Miller really comes to their own in this movie, and I actually thought they did a really great job. But the best performance of the film has got to be Michael Keaton back as Batman from the Tim Burton series, and I am so glad that he is in this movie like everybody else. For most people, he is considered one of the greatest people to ever play the Caped Crusader, and I have to agree with that. He is phenomenal in this film, and I think he was perfectly casted, and he doesn't feel like he has missed a step as the Caped Crusader himself, where we have so many of these older actors coming back to play these superheroes in this time of era where we're getting so many multiverse and people playing their old characters again. He does an awesome job, and he feels just as good as he was, if not better than those other previous films. One of the best aspects about this film has got to be the direction, as I feel Andy Muschietti was the right person for the job, as I've really enjoyed enjoyed his movies so far with Mama in It 1 and It Chapter 2, and I feel as though that he has a good grasp of this character and trying to add so much emotion and depth to the Flash and to this universe as a whole. And for the fact that he hasn't been involved with any of the other DC projects, whether it's a producer role or even a writer, he does a great job of being able to showcase everything that the Flash is at its core. A very emotionally broken down character that is just racing against his life all the time, pun intended. One of the things that really surprised me about this film was the humor, as there was a lot of it in this movie. Most of the humor in this movie is actually really funny, and it is a lot due to the writing, as a lot of the jokes do feel very creative and not just stupid and throw in your face like we've seen a lot of the other DCU movies, aka Suicide Squad from 2016. This movie was very funny, and I really enjoyed all of the banter between all of the characters, and it doesn't rely on the humor to make this movie work, but I think the self-aware humor of it makes this movie feel just a little bit better. I found the action scenes in this movie to be quite decent, as I was a little disappointed in terms of how much action there is, because there is action, but it does take a long time to get to it, and when we do get the action, which is mostly in the final act of the movie, it's just a lot of the same boring things you would come to expect when it comes to a basic superhero third act battle that didn't really leave me all that interested. There wasn't a ton of emotion behind it until we get to like the last 30 minutes of the movie, which has not been shown in any of the trailers, and that was the best part of the movie. I also found the presentation of the action wasn't amazing, where there is a ton, and I mean a ton, of slow motion shots in this movie that went on for too long, and I get it. That is the point of this character. I mean, it even happens in the Flash television show that just ended, but it doesn't work when you use it every 5 seconds and it goes on for so long. You're really not into it as much, and I wish the action was just done a little bit better. But I do feel all the action scenes with the Batman were great, and it was really cool to see Michael Keaton's Batman just kick the crap out of all these dudes, especially when you've seen Batman in those Tim Burton movies. He can barely move his head. But easily my favorite aspect about this film that I've already talked about has got to be the emotional depth behind this. This felt like a very relatable movie in terms of trying to save somebody that can't be saved, and the concept of how things are meant to be and the determination of fate. This movie explores a lot of those angles in a very emotionally satisfying way. Unfortunately, this movie does have quite a few negatives here, and I do have to go with the story. The first 20 to 30 minutes of this movie is very strong, and it flows exactly the way you would want it, with great pacing, and you feel like you have a great idea of where this movie is going. But once we get into the chunk of the movie, right slab in the middle, the movie just loses its focus and it goes all over the place, and there's a lot of time travel and different aspects that they're thrown into this movie that just didn't really work for me all that much. It felt like there was a lot of reshoots with this movie and trying to mesh it all together for all the various changes within this universe for upcoming movies, and it was very distracting to watch because it doesn't feel like this was the end product that they were going for. I could be wrong, I could be projecting, but that's how it comes across to me while watching the film. I also felt this movie was a little too long, as I really do enjoy long movies, but the pacing of this movie just suffers when you get into the middle act of the movie. The trailer for this film is a summary of the whole movie at its core, so I'm gonna be honest with you, maybe I was just waiting to see when we were gonna get past the moment where I didn't see things from the trailer, and I can't just blame the marketing for the end product of the film, but it definitely affected my experience in a way. There are also various moments throughout the film that have a lot of cheesy dialogue or stupid jokes that just didn't work for me, and I had some people in my theater that were just laughing at every single joke, and there were a lot of people that weren't laughing at those jokes. There were a few subplots in this movie that I didn't find all that interesting that is completely spoiler talk, so I won't dive into them, but I do feel they have a lot of problems in the way that they're fleshed out with the rest of the film. Overall, guys, The Flash Flash was a enjoyable superhero movie that I wouldn't mind seeing again, as it does have tons of the great superhero action you come to expect. And if you're a big fan of the DC comics and the movies and the Flash himself, I think you're going to really enjoy this movie because the Flash is done well, and I really enjoyed the suit and Ezra Miller, and I think that this movie is going to be very serviceable for all audiences, but it does have quite a few negatives that drag this movie down, and I don't think it is one of the best superhero movies of all time. I'm sorry, Tom Cruise and everyone else who said this movie was amazing. I am giving The Flash a 6 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for checking out this review. As I want to know below in the comments section, have you seen The Flash? And if you have, let me know your spoiler-free thoughts about the film. I would love to hear about it. Thank you guys so much for checking out this review, and I will see you all in the following video.